You can hear me say yeah. If you still healing, say yeah. Yeah. If you can hear me say yeah. If you still healing, say yeah. If you know knowledge is power, turn it up. I'm a whole star, don't skim my page. Black woman magic season with age. From chalked up streams to a mic in the stage. I learned early, freedom's learned, I say. They try to count me out, I learned to count on every letter I master, put the lights on. From broken systems, I built my own lane. Turn wounds into wisdom, pressure to gain. I don't just speak, I teach when I talk. I don't just hope, I feel when I walk. I've been evolving, molting my skin. If you knew where I started, you clap for the win. I read between lines, they never designed for girls who look like me to shine. But once you learn the code, can't cage your mind. Say it with me, literacy liberates life. Read it aloud, I'm free right now. Hands in the air, I feel the truth come down. Read it aloud, I broke the vow. I said I had to stay small somehow. Every word I learned, every scar I heal, build me into something real. This my sound, this my crown. When I step out, read it aloud. I'm healing in public, evolving on beat. Soft where I need, still firm on my feet. I pray, I plan, I pivot, I rise. I trust the process and honor the signs. I'm somebody's mom, I'm somebody's guide. Somebody who refused to shrink or size. I teach parents, power kids how to dream. Turn households into literacy scenes. This ain't a moment, it's a movement. I don't gatekeep, I improve it. If they ask who sent me, tell them I knew it. God, grit, growth, yeah, I'll influence. They told me wait my turn, stay in my place. I built a whole table and widened the space. Once you know your worth, can't unsee the truth. Say it with me, reading is revolutionary. Read it aloud, I'm free right now. Read it aloud, hands in the air, feel the truth come down. Read it aloud, I broke the vow. They said I had to stay small somehow. Every word I learned, every scar I healed, built me into something real. This my sound, this my crown. When I step out, read it aloud. I've been becoming, don't rush my bloom. Had to unlearn just to make more room. Faith in my chest, fire in my feet. If I survive that, I can lead this. From hushed tones to headline nights, from can't sheet to watch her ignite. If you still growing, still breaking through, this part right here is for you. Say read it. Say read it. Say think for yourself every day, every night. Think it out. I'm here right now. My whole life loud, no dimming down. Read it aloud. I know my power now. I teach freedom, no backing out. Every word I learned, every scar I heal, built me into something real. This my sound, this my crown. When I step out, read it aloud. Literacy is liberation. Healing is loud. Evolution looks good on me.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, Facebook, YouTube. For those of you that are joining me, I am Catina Taylor, and I want to welcome you to a special broadcast that I have titled, Let's Talk About It. I will tell you that the reason why before I do that though, for those of you that don't know me, again, my name is Catina Taylor. I'm right here in the Midwest, the heart of America for sure. I am a native Kansas Citian, a product of Kansas City Public Schools, a graduate of Avila University, a graduate of the University of Kansas School of Law, certified educator, 26-year veteran in the education space, 15 of which were spent in classrooms. First, teaching middle school English language arts. Second, teaching first grade. Third, teaching high school. Throughout those 26 years, I have tutored, I have taught parents, I have moved students in their literacy journey. In addition to that, I have taught in the traditional public school setting. I have taught in the independent or private school setting, and I have taught in public charter schools. So when we talk about the educational ecosystem, understand and know that you are truly engaging with an education professional that focuses in on literacy for all. So that's who I am. I thank you all for tapping in, whether you're on Facebook, whether you are on YouTube. What I would encourage you to do is to like, follow my channels. Dreams KC is my nonprofit organization where we empower parents with the tools they need to teach their children foundational literacy skills. That is the work. Our primary focus is parent literacy training, where we train parents to do what effectively trained educators like myself can do in the comfort of their own home, using tools and resources that they already have at their fingertips, making it fun and engaging for their children. We also write, illustrate, and publish our own decodable books. You want to learn more about that? Go to our website, www.dreamskc.org. And you will learn about all the work that we do. We are moving forward the Decodable Book Literacy Hub initiative here in the Midwest, where we partner with libraries or other community-based organizations to ensure that parents, children can have decodable books at their fingertips to support their literacy journey. So that is the work of Dreams KC. And I, again, am excited to introduce you to Dreams, to introduce you to myself if you are new, but more importantly, to let's talk about it tonight, y'all. Most recently, KCTV5, our local news channel, released a story about the disparities that exist for children of color, meaning Black and brown children and their white counterparts as it relates to literacy across the state of Missouri. But more importantly, we all know that the literacy crisis exists across this country. So no matter where you are in this country, and I ask you all to drop where you are tuning in from in the comments. Let me know who's watching, where you live, who you're representing, your city, your state, your school district. It doesn't matter. Share the information so we know. But one thing we are clear about is that this literacy crisis exists across this nation. COVID is not responsible for the literacy crisis that we find ourselves in. So let's be clear about that. And Missouri is not different from anywhere else as it relates to the literacy crisis. All right. So I just wanted to let you all know kind of the framework we are coming from. I am coming from. I will tell you that tonight is just what I said. Let's talk about it, meaning that this is not going to be a place for debate. This is not an opportunity to come and think, assume that I am going to argue with anyone in the comments tonight. It's not about that at all. What it is about, however, is to dispel the myths, the assumptions, the miscarriage around Black and brown families as it relates to the literacy development and the roles of involvement and engagement of Black families, of brown families, of poor families. And tonight, I brought receipts for y'all. So that's what this is about. I'm going to talk until I cover everything I want to cover. I have no idea how long this is going to last. But again, what I ask you all to do is hit that like button, hit that share button, tag folks in. I don't care if it's press. I don't care if it's funders. I don't care if it's politicians. I don't care if it's been some of the folks that have been making comments on the KCTV5 news story. So that's what I want you all to know. I want to acknowledge School Smart KC, one of my funders, one of my partners in the Literacy for All initiative in Kansas City, Missouri, partnering with all of the elementary schools to ensure that they have the resources, the tools, and the supports they need to continue to grow confident and competent readers across our city. So they are also the ones responsible for me taking part in the KCTV5 news broadcast, the story done around the disparities amongst Black and brown children and their white counterparts as it relates to literacy. So I always want to acknowledge those that support the work of Dreams KC, our students, our families, and our other literacy partners, right? So that is what I want you all to know. Now, I would tell you that it was a 5-minute news piece. For those of you that watched it and you didn't just see the teaser, but if you watch the news clip, which will air again tonight at 10 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on KCTV5, please tune in to see again, hear again, or for the first time, go ahead and tap in and check it out. So I want you to know we are expanding on that conversation. I sat with the news reporter that did that report, and she is absolutely amazing to sit down and conversate with. They did a great job in terms of editing and really building out the story. But again, this is a conversation that you can't do in 5 minutes and think you have done it justice. We need to continue to talk about it, and that's why I invited you in. Let's talk, y'all. Right? That's what it's about. Let's talk about it. So I want to share with you all in the comments. Just today, another piece of the story was revealed. KCTV5 Plus on YouTube did a behind the story piece. So I want you all to know that is there for your viewing pleasure when you have the time and the opportunity and the capacity to take that in. Again, that was the behind the story piece where we actually talked to, or I should say, one of the anchors at KCTV5 talked to the individual responsible for bringing us the original story so that they could really hear from her what she learned, why she approached the story the way that she approached it, and why it was important to her to do the coverage. So just want you all to know that it is there, and I hope you tap in and check it out. That piece is done. You know who I am. You know why we're here. So again, let's talk about it. All right. So I've been reading the comments, y'all, and I've been trying to stay out of them. But when so much misinformation, so many myths, so many preconceived notions are being espoused, it becomes very, very difficult when you know the information, when you have lived the experience, when you have supported children and families for your career, 30 years almost, right? To stay silent and let misinformation, myths, and things of that nature not be debunked, right? So that's why I said I can no longer stay silent about what I am reading, what I am seeing, the vitriol, the hatred, the assumptions, all of the things that are not researched or data backed, data driven. And so again, I come to bring receipts tonight. So the first myth, and the one that I have been seeing so much in the comments as it relates to the stories, is myth number 1. Black and brown parents don't value education and don't read to their children. That is a myth. We have data and research that tells us different. And even when Black and brown families, especially Black families, could be put to death, right, for learning to read and then sharing that knowledge and information, we still did it. Okay, so I want you all to understand and know that. So this is the big one, and I really want to walk you through the data. Okay, I got my notes ready, and I want to ensure that a bibliography of the research and the data that I will be sharing with you will also be made available so that you can check my facts. Okay, I don't mind, unlike many others, being fact checked. Okay, and I hope that you are teachable. I hope you are open to learning. I hope you came with an open mind, but not so. I hope you didn't show up so that you could plant your feet and look for an opportunity to say, aha, my point is proven. I hope you come with again, an open mind, a spirit of being teachable, so that you are not in your community, in your family, in your city, in your state, continuing to share misinformation. information. All right. So let's go. Myth number one is that Black and brown parents don't value education and that they do not read to their children. Again, that is a myth. 84% of Black parents check homework or read to their children daily or weekly. The UNCF report verifies this information. So I want you all to understand that there has been research and data done around this particular myth. The fact is that 84% of Black parents not only check homework, but they read with or to their children daily and or weekly. 80% or above regularly. Let me say that again. Regularly communicate with their child's teacher. 84% of Black and brown parents, 80% plus regularly communicate with teachers. Again, in the UNCF report, nearly 90% of Black and brown parents, you hear me? 90, believe it's important for their child to attend a college. That is a societal thing because remember, society in this country has often said Black and brown people are lazy, Black and brown people don't value education, and we were not given the same opportunities. So in our homes, our grandparents, great-grandparents, they always told us how important education was because they thought it was the great equalizer. So there was spoken and unspoken rules in many of our homes that said you go to school, you make good grades, you go on and further your education so that no one can deny the opportunity. There is oftentimes spoken and unspoken rules in our home that we have to show up and be 2, 3, 4, or 5 times better than our counterparts in order to be on what we would like it to be, a level playing field. And so because that is taught to us, because that is preached to us, because that is reiterated to us most of our young lives, then we navigate in that way and we show up prepared. Okay, you hear what I'm saying? I hope you all are. 90% believe it's important for their children to attend college. Almost 90% of low-income Black mothers, because there's been some comments about single-parent homes. If the dad is not in the house or if the mom is not in the house. But 90% of low-income Black mothers read to their children at least, that's minimum, a few times a week, and over 60% read to their children daily. That is from an early Head Start study that was conducted. All right. Now, I didn't go and pull studies from 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50 years ago. Absolutely not. So when I share the resources with you all, you will understand and know that this is relevant data that is giving us this information. 71% of Black parents with a college degree read frequently to their children, higher than our white parents who are our counterparts. Their data shows from the U.S. Census Bureau 2023 that 68% of their parents overall with college degrees read to their children frequently. So let me give you that data point again. 71% of Black parents with a college degree read frequently to their children, while their white counterparts with college degrees, 61 or 68% read to their children frequently. That is from the United States Census Bureau 2023. All right. So when we talk about this 16-point gap in home reading rates between Black and white families, please understand that is far smaller than there is a 39%, I'm sorry, in Kansas City. There's a 39% proficiency gap in Kansas City system of schools. So not just Kansas City public schools. We're talking about all of the public schools and the charter schools within the boundaries of the Kansas City Public School District. Please understand and know that. So 39 point proficiency gap in the schools. But there's only a 16-point gap in home reading rates between Black and white families, right? So if just reading to your children was the issue, we numbers. I want you to be really, really clear about that. The math doesn't add up. If parents are the problem, something else is going on. We have to acknowledge it, and it's happening inside the system, not inside the home. Let me say that again. 39-point gap in Kansas City schools, but only a 16-point gap in home reading rates between Black and white families. The math ain't mathing. Because if what we were doing at home was the issue, we wouldn't have a 39 point gap amongst Black and brown students and their white counterparts. You see what I'm saying? So again, as I said in the report, this is a systems issue, not a home issue. The data and research further tells us that 90% of all children are capable, intellectually ready to learn how to read. So it has absolutely nothing to do with their ability. They are capable. Is the system set up in such a way that they can acquire the skills? That's the question. So in 2018, there was a doctoral study done at UMKC, which this report came from our partners at School Smart in partnership with UMKC as well, that found that Black parents are involved, absolutely are involved, but schools use a definition of involvement that doesn't always capture how Black families show up, right? The study said it plainly: the tools used to measure involvement are inadequate and not the parents. So whose measure of success, whose measure of involvement, whose measure of engagement are we actually using? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. Again, you will get the research, you will get the bibliography, so you can look up and fact check me yourself. All right. So I just want you to understand that's myth number one, that Black and brown parents don't value education and don't read to their kids. Debunked. Okay. You don't ever need to repeat that again because it's not true. All right. All right. Myth number two. Myth number two. Desegregation. The money spent on the DSEG case did this to us. It was better before. Again, myth number two. All right. So, yes, DSEG happened. It's a real thing, real part of our story in Kansas City. Absolutely. But it's being used to avoid what is happening today. So let's be really, really clear about that. Brown v. Board, every case after, including up into DSEG and their incense, lost a significant number of African American teachers, most of which had master's degrees or above, most of which taught according to the science of reading. And children like myself and my siblings learned to read very early. There was a shift. Today, only about 6%, not 16, not 66. 6% of Missouri's teachers are Black, and that does matter because the research tells us that African American teachers generally set a higher bar for all students. So using desegregation as a full explanation ignores 50 years of instructional policy decisions, curriculum decisions that have failed students. Please understand that. Decisions that had nothing to do with where kids sit and everything to do with how they have been taught to read. We are always looking for a shiny new object. We're always looking for ways in which to make money. And oftentimes that comes at the expense of children and families, especially if they are marginalized children and families. We just have to own that. That's not an excuse. That's not victimhood. That's just the fact of the matter. It has been in this country for quite some time. We have to know that. We have to accept that. That is true. And I don't care how you try to whitewash it or erase it or tell a different narrative, the facts bear it out. All right. So that's myth number 2. Has absolutely literacy scores in 2026 have absolutely nothing to do with desegregation in Kansas City. Let's get lit, y'all. Myth number 3. Myth number 3. Parents just need to do more at home. I love this one. If the parents just do more, they just read more, the data shows that parents are doing the work at home. The issue is that for 50 years or more, the approach to reading instruction has gone like a pendulum. Right? I'm in my 50s. But the science of reading, before we called it that, structured literacy, before we called it that, was being taught in the schools that I attended by master degree teachers or above. Okay? High quality, effective instruction was happening. 1970s. See what I'm saying? Then the late 1980s swung around. We were looking for that shiny new thing. Someone decided, after spending time in Europe, oh, we can just shift to this balanced literacy, whole language, 3 cueing system. If it wasn't broke, why did we feel the need to fix it? It wasn't broke. Children were reading well. They were mastering the language, which we are not hardwired for. All children, including you, we had to build the neural pathways in our brains because as human beings, we are hardwired for oral language, not the printed text. But in the late 80s, we shift to 3 cueing, whole language, balanced literacy, which teaches kids not to associate letters and sounds and letters, but to look at an illustration and guess, to look at the first letter of a word and guess what the word might be, or the ending. Memorize. When we know that the capacity of the human brain cannot hold more than 300 words or thereabouts. Context. What do you think it is based on? Versus look at the text, make the sound, letter, correspondence, and then figure out what the word is. Blend it. Not that hard, not rocket science, right? Then we get to 2000. Research says something's going on here. We have 1980s, 1990s, 2000s. Research starts saying, well, this wasn't happening in the 70s. What happened? What changed? And we start pulling out the research that already exists about the brain and how we learn to read. And we said, oh, across this country, we have made a mistake. We need to start rolling this back. But now you have millions, billions, trillions of dollars sewn up in curriculum companies, tests, standardized tests. And pride and ego wouldn't let the ecosystem, the system of education, just say we've gotten it wrong. So they continued down a path they knew wasn't serving children and families, impacting graduation rates, impacting incarceration rates, under and unemployment, access to health care, civic engagement. Who benefits from that? Just a question to ask, to contemplate, right? So we get to COVID, and folks want to say, well, it's COVID. COVID happened. COVID happened. That's what, no, that was only a few years. You heard me say test scores start changing in the 80s. 30 years it was happening. But what happened is children got home, not Black and brown children, but children in totality got home during COVID, and the sheet was thrown off. Privileged families, families that felt as if, hey, I'm sending my child to school every day. I don't understand why they can't read. Or I'm observing what teachers are doing online during this COVID epidemic, pandemic, and my child's not thriving. I'm spending more time. I'm asking more questions. I'm engaging more. And this is what I'm finding out. There's a problem here. Or a lot of families knew that they were reading to their child every day and trying to supplement what was happening in the school, and their children still weren't progressing. They get a diagnosis of dysgraphia, dyslexia, and they go to the schools and ask for the resources and the help and the screening and the support, and they were being rejected. Let's be clear about what's been happening. I'm taking my time with this so you all understand. That's what was going on during COVID. And so then we have the podcast, the famous podcast, Sold a Story, gains traction. When many educators like myself and others for decades have been saying there's a problem. So it picks up momentum, and we find ourselves in 2025, while other states across the country are saying, oh my gosh, we realize the 3 queuing method that we adopted doesn't work. We're going to ban it. We're going to get rid of it. What Missouri did was said, we'll restrict it. You can use it, but you can't use it as your primary method for teaching reading. Now, let me ask you a question, because I like common sense, right? So if I go to the doctor with an ailment of any kind, my treatment plan may include a prescription. If your doctor tells you that they're going to prescribe something for you that doesn't actually treat and or cure your ailment, your diagnosis, what's the point of taking it? That's the same thing here. And in the news story, when the question was asked, why doesn't Missouri just ban it? It doesn't work. And you have a government official say, well, the teachers that are using it a little bit, it's not their, I think it might not be, I'm sure it's kind of not like their primary mode of teaching it. You shouldn't be using it at all. It does not work. So when you have a state, a city, a school district, a school board that allows their teachers, their education professionals, to continue to use a method that doesn't serve children and students well, we have to ask the question why. And that's what's happening in the state of Missouri. Let's talk about it, y'all. We have not banned 3 queuing. It is still being used in classrooms. And unless you have been in every single classroom to observe every single teacher, you don't know if they're using it as their primary teaching method or not. It should not be allowed. We just have to be clear about that. And there are some teachers, there are some education professionals across the country that still believe 3Qing works. So if they believe that, and that is a part of their educational philosophy, theory, and pedagogy, you best believe if they're using it in the classroom, or if they still have it in their pocketbook, they're in a state that hasn't banned it, they're using it to the detriment of children each and every day. All right. So this whole notion about parents just need to do more at home, let me be really clear. You can read to your child every single night and still have them fall behind if what's happening in the classroom contradicts the science. That's not a parent failure. That's a system failure. And we have to be honest about it. We have to have conversation about it. We got to talk about it, y'all. Let's keep talking about it. But please understand and know that this is receipts. This is receipts. And when we adopted the 3Qing method in the 80s, understand and know that teachers that were going to school, college, to become educators were going to schools of ed that were teaching the 3Qing method if they were teaching anything at all around literacy. Not the science of reading, not structured literacy, not Tolman's hourglass figure, not Scarborough's reading rope, not the simple view of reading. So when you have 4,000 colleges and universities in the country and only about 10% of are teaching teachers how to effectively teach reading, we end up with the 39-point gap that exists today. And then when you're a person like me who travels across the globe talking to other educators, education professionals who consistently say, my bachelor's program didn't teach me how to teach reading. My master's program didn't teach me how to teach reading. And in some cases, my specialist degree did not teach me how to teach reading. Or if they're a content area teacher and they teach high school, I wasn't an elementary trained teacher. Therefore, no one taught me how to teach reading. But you got a 9th grader, you got a 10th grader, you got an 11th grader that can't read. We all should be teaching reading. We all should know how to teach reading. Because parents send their children to school every single day with an expectation that at least they're going to get some effective reading instruction. And then we'll do our part to supplement that at home. But if our taxpayers are going to schools and school districts, how are we holding them parents accountable and responsible? All right, y'all. Let's talk about it. All right, let's talk about it. So let's dig in here. What's changed? Let me tell you what Missouri law now requires, right? I was debunking the myths. I wanted to kind of get that out of the way so we don't have to have any more conversation about it. You don't have to go in the comments of any broadcast, any news article. Don't be ignorant. Don't reject the science, the data, the research. Don't do that. So what has changed? Let me tell you what Missouri law now requires, because this is the context, right? Missouri. So Missouri has the Reading Instruction Act. Okay. The Missouri Reading Instruction Act, section 170.014. It was updated in 2025. Did I tell you I was a political science major in undergrad? And then I went to law school, just in case y'all wanted to know again. So it requires the Missouri's Reading Instruction Act, section 170.014. All right. Updated in 2025. Again, just want to make sure you have the information. Requires phonics as the primary strategy for teaching word reading in K through 5. It requires phonics as the primary strategy for teaching reading K through 5. Now, it defines 3 cueing by name, so it does call it out, and says that schools cannot rely on it as the primary method. Now, that's key. When you read a law, when you read a policy, you got to, every word matters. They can't rely on it as the primary method, which means they can yield to it as a secondary or supplemental method when we know that that doesn't work. That's like giving me the good medicine and then undoing it by giving me the bad medicine. We're going to have some type of counter effect, right? Some kind of drug interaction. So why would we rely on it? And phonics is just a part of the science of reading. So even in this, we need to be very clear. Structured literacy, science of reading in totality, not just phonics. Phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, fluency, comprehension, morphography, orthography, I can't even talk today, morphology. And we're going to talk about it all the moving parts, right? So I want to be clear, we got to be teaching it all, not just phonics. Please understand and know phonics is a part of science of reading, part of structured literacy, not all of it. Schools, the law also says that schools must use evidence-based reading instruction grounded in 5 components. Now, here we go when we call it out. Phonics as the primary. Then it says also have these 5 components: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And then we're going to pray that teachers actually know how to teach those things. Because, well, let me keep going first. Here's the next part of the law. All new K through 3 teachers must be trained in these areas. All new K through 3 teachers. So it's taught from K to 5, but only new K through 3 teachers need to know how to teach it. So if you've been here for a while, if you're a veteran teacher like myself, 15 years in the classroom, 26 in the space, and I don't know, but then I'm responsible for teaching, how'd that work? Because the state also has paid for training in the science of reading, structured literacy, but it's not mandated that those veteran teachers go through it. Only the new teachers. How that make sense? Parents must be notified if their child has a reading deficiency. If you're a parent, you're in the state of Missouri, were you notified? How were you notified? Were you told what that means? Or did you have to fight for assessment? Did you have to fight for an IEP? Did you have to fight for a 504 plan? So it doesn't matter if something is written, if in implementation and enforcement, it still doesn't benefit children. And more often than not, I have heard hundreds of stories from parents, and not just Black and brown parents, all kinds of parents across the socioeconomic continuum, different demographics in terms of age, education, and they're all having a challenge. And again, remember, I am an education professional, so I'm not beating up on teachers, administrators at all. But the facts are the facts. Excuse me, burping. Sorry. The facts are the facts, right? Last but certainly not least, the law says the schools must provide strategies for home support. Because remember, this started in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. So 30 years, right? We're dealing with this, still dealing with this. So parents of today were students of yesterday. And if they were not taught correctly, if they had their own literacy challenges, which this data tells us that 75% of students who have literacy challenges have parents with literacy challenges, then how can we hold them accountable and responsible for supporting their children and becoming literate? Like, connect the dots. Let's talk about it, y'all. That's what it's called tonight. Let's talk about it. The math ain't mathing. Again, not excuses, facts. I can lean into facts. And if you have some facts that counter anything that I'm saying, drop them. Again, we're not arguing, we're dialoguing. We're debunking. We're making the case. We're telling the story. We're going a bit deeper. All right? So I want you to be really, really clear what the law requires. Phonics as a primary strategy for teaching word reading in K through 5. It defines what 3Qing is. It says the schools cannot rely on it as a primary teaching method, which doesn't mean that they can't use it. Let's be clear, even though we know it doesn't work. Been proven. Decades and decades and decades of research has told us that. Schools must use evidence-based reading instruction grounded in the 5 components: phonics, phonemic awareness, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. All new K through 3 teachers must be trained in these areas. What about the old? What about mid-career? Because they can opt into getting trained, but it is not required for them to be trained. Parents must be notified if a child has a reading deficiency, and schools must provide strategies for home support. So that's what Missouri law requires. So parents, I want you to know and understand you have rights. Just like people want to hold you accountable and responsible, you also get to lean into the rights afforded to you by the law. So if your child is struggling to read and no one has told you, they're out of compliance. It's a violation of what the law requires. If no one has given you a reading success plan with goals and strategies, ask for one. Otherwise, they are out of compliance and violating the law. You are supposed to be a part of the process as a parent, as a caregiver, as a guardian. And if you are not involved in the process, that is a violation of the law. Hold people accountable just like they want to hold you accountable. Parents, grandparents, caregivers. All right. So now we dive right into the solutions, y'all. All right. I didn't go live tonight to talk about only the problems. I didn't. And I felt like in the report, I was not happy with myself. I mean, I provided great information. We had an amazing dialogue. The report was the KCTV5 news report was amazingly, it was done well. I have no arguments. But I don't want to be known as an individual that only is going to settle in and talk about the problems. I want you all to be really, really clear. Sharon did a great job. We're talking about solutions. Beatrice Henry is a partner in the work with me. I love the work that she is doing in schools, on YouTube, and things of that nature. I want to acknowledge literacy partners like Lead to Read, Turn the Page KC, Kansas City Public Library, Mid-Continent Public Library, Reach Out and Read, Literacy KC. Those are all organizations in the Kansas City metro area that are addressing this issue in their own way. But we can't leave out the work of Dreams KC. Before I dive into that, though, for those of you that don't have a link to the news story, I'm going to go ahead and drop that in the comments for you because I want you all to be able to access it. I want you all to be able to share it with others that need to see it if they haven't, so that we should be having conversations about this around our kitchen table. The next time you go to a friend, a family member, a colleague's house, did you know? Because literacy impacts us all. And so we have to be having these conversations, okay? So I dropped the new piece that came out today, the behind the story piece. I dropped the link to the original article in the comments for you all as well. And Also, the part that it has so many comments, I want to make sure you have that as well. I'm going to drop that in the comments for you so you have it. I want to make sure you have everything you need. They're loading, they're loading. I'm seeing them come through. So they should be there on YouTube. They should be there on the Dreams KC Facebook page. They should be there on my personal Facebook page as well. You have the links to all of these things. I want you all to know that. And then let me give you some sites. I want to start dropping some other resources in the comments for you all. Like the data that was just shared. If you go to UMKC, or actually probably School Smart KC's website, I'm sure that you'll find the data that just came out that was referenced in the KCTV5 report. All right. So again, School Smart and UMKC looked at 17 districts in the KC metro area. They call that the system, the Kansas City public school system. So we're not just talking about Kansas City public schools. Please understand and know that. All right. If you look up the Literacy for All campaign at School Smart's website, which I'll drop that for you, you can see if you are a corporation, a funder, you want to support the work that is going forth to eradicate illiteracy in the Kansas City metro area, I'm going to give you that link so you can become involved and engaged, because after the talk, we have to act. Like, we should be talking about this. That's why I said, let's talk about it. And then we have to be moved to act. And don't think because your child can read, your grandchild can read, that it doesn't impact you. Because if you're a business owner, you need a literate workforce. If you're a business owner, you want people that can read, that won't be under and unemployed and not able to take care of themselves, because they may, not that they will, but they may, out of being desperate to care for themselves and or their families, resort to crime or violence, right? Because they may be unemployed, underemployed, unhoused. 75 to 80% of inmates today have a dyslexia diagnosis and or are illiterate. In some shape, form, or fashion, they have a literacy issue. We have to understand that. So it impacts all of us. We have to be really, really clear about that. Another resource that I want to share with you all, I'll do that separate. I'm going to post. No, I'll do it now. I'll do it now. The Reading Instruction Act. I'm going to give you all that. I'll give you the Reading Success Plan information, the policies, the dyslexia screening policies, and then Senate Bill 68 that was passed in 2025, making phonics the primary method for word reading. Okay. And barred 3Qing as the primary instructional method. Didn't ban it in its entirety. It just said it can't be its primary. So I want you to also understand that. I'm going to post those for you as well. So again, you can rely on this information and say, she shared facts, she shared receipts. Right? I'm sharing all of that for you all so that you have an opportunity to look at it yourself. Didn't something you heard, something you saw with your own eyes. Now, if you get to a place where you're like, well, I still don't believe it. Nothing I can do with that. Like, right? This is what it is. And then what I'll do is I'll create a document that gives you all of the research around Black parental involvement, and then Kansas City specific evidence we have, the history of 3Qing. I have all of it for you. So I'll make sure I share all of that with you all as well. Okay. All right. So let's get to the call to action. Let's get to the solutions, because that's where we need to be spending time. That's what I want you all to walk away with. What can we do? Because we can talk about the problem all day long, but until we get to a place of solutions, it's for naught, right? All right. So here we go. Again, I didn't want to just, talk about the problem, but we needed to address some things that I had been seeing. So I really went live because the work of Dreams KC and my other literacy partners, many of which I have mentioned by name tonight, it exists to be a part of the solution. It exists to eradicate illiteracy. That is the mission of Dreams KC. I did not create a nonprofit 501c3 organization that would have to last for 100 years. No. I have a mission to eradicate illiteracy in our community before I die. Okay? We are not alone in this work. All of us are working collectively in our own way. Some of us are addressing adult literacy. Some of us are addressing children's literacy. But what we must have is a comprehensive plan. So what I want to talk to you about is, again, what Dreams does, who we serve, and how our work connects to closing the gap. So again, we empower parents with the tools they need to teach their children foundational skills in a fun and engaging way in the comfort of their own home that doesn't take a lot of time. Because if education professionals are not being trained effectively, if schools and school districts are not changing their policies and their methods to teach reading, then I will say that then the onus is on us as parents, as grandparents, as community members to do all we can until the system decides to catch up with us. What I have always been able to do is move children along the literacy continuum so that they are confident and competent readers. And I could continue to tutor 1 student, 2 students, 5 students at a time, or I can teach parents who love their children more than I could ever love them, who wants what's best for their children more than I could ever want, to do what I do. So we do that through our parent literacy training. We talk about the importance of decodable books, which are the tools to allow children to practice reading in isolation, mastering these skills that they are being taught in real time. What does that do? When a kid has a quick win, an early success, then they want to continue to practice because they're having that success. When most children tell you they don't like to read, it's not that they don't like it, they're just not good at it yet. But if we get decodable books in their hands, and we just taught the short A, and that decodable book focuses on the short A sound, meaning that 75 to 80% of the words in there are decodable because they know the letter sounds, they can blend those words, they can decode the text. They have that early success that builds their what? Confidence. The more their confidence is built up, they want to read, they want to practice, and that builds their competence. So when I hear parents saying, just have them pick up a book, well, it doesn't matter if they pick up the damn book if they can't access the text in the book. If the skill hasn't been taught to them, reinforced with them. And reading to children has its place. It builds their background knowledge. It models for them fluency and how we think through a text. It does have its place, but parents should not be doing the bulk of the reading. No, absolutely not. So Dreams KC teaches parents all of the things you need to know. We share with you about the reading brain. We share with you how to do a quick assessment so that you know what gaps exist for your children and then how you can begin to close those. We do decodable book walks. So we blow up decodable books to yard sign size so that parents and children can have a fun and engaging way. I don't ever want a parent to tell me they didn't know their child was having a problem with literacy because they haven't listened to them or heard them read. So we take decodable books and we actually blow them up, and you can actually walk and read together and engage and ask questions and all of the things. And then last but certainly not least, and really not last, we also write, illustrate, and publish our own decodables that reflect the community that we serve. I have bought decodable books from all over the world, and very, very few had characters or told stories that would resonate with children of color. So Dreams KC makes that available to children and families. They need to see themselves in the books and the stories that they engage with. That makes it interesting to them. Okay? And last but certainly not least, we also are now putting together what we call decodable book literacy hubs. Unfortunately, I learned the hard way, but many of our library systems do not have a significant collection of decodable books. So we want to ensure that all of our public access points are providing equity through the ability to access decodable books, because they're not sold at a Barnes and Noble. Where else do we get books now? Maybe on Amazon, but most decodables are sold by private publishers. And so we want to ensure that the place where we go, the library, to access free resources and things of that nature are actually the books that we need, the decodable books that our children and families need, so that they can practice the skills. Some of our older, or our adolescent literacy kiddos, they don't want those baby decodable books. So we are also now producing decodable chapter books for our older students. When I say adolescent literacy learners, that means they're 4th grade and above, they still need to practice those skills. And most of our older students, if they are still struggling with reading, it usually centers around fluency and comprehension. But there are some that also need the decoding practice. So we also are creating decodable chapter books. This is not a sales pitch. It's just to let you all know, if I'm a part of a news story, a broadcast that is talking about the significant gap that exists, I also want to tell you about the work of Dreams KC in closing, shrinking, and eliminating that gap. So that's what I wanted to share with you all today. I wanted to debunk the myth. I wanted to provide you with the facts. I wanted to tell you what the law said, and I wanted to share with you what Dreams KC is doing as a part of the solution. Okay? I also want to talk to you all about the work of School Smart KC. If you are a philanthropic organization, a family foundation, you have grant funding available, and you want to fund tutors, literacy coaches, parent literacy training, then go to School Smart KC. Ask about how you can invest in the Literacy for All campaign so that we eradicate illiteracy in our community. Okay? It's a citywide initiative. No school's going to be left out. We want every single school to have the tools, the resources, and support they need to build confident and competent readers. Okay? Funding partners, community orgs, we're all working together to address this issue. And we want you alongside us. We want you supporting the work, right? So this is what community-led initiatives look like. A Dreams KC, a School Smart KC, a KCTV5 that's going to do the research and tell the story. A Beatrice Henry, whose Parade of Hearts Heart is talking about the joy of reading. That's what it's about here. So I've given you all the links. I'm going to last, but certainly not least, I'm going to put in the Dreams KC link. Remember, we are a nonprofit. So we take donations. We need board members. Buy the books. That money goes back into the nonprofit to ensure that we can continue to train our parents. And if you want to bring parent literacy training to your district, to your school, we welcome the opportunity to do the work with you. I hope that this conversation was good for you. It was good for me. I know I will sleep well. I won't struggle with the misinformation that's out there now, because I've done my part to shift the tide, so to speak, so that everyone is knowledgeable and having great conversations around, we know what the problem is, but how can we solve it? I've given you many levers to get involved, get engaged, and actually do real work to eradicate illiteracy in our community and across the country. All right. So parents, what can you do right now? I want you to start asking your schools, your school districts, what reading curriculum they're using. Ask them if it's aligned to structured literacy, the science of reading. Ask if your child's classroom teacher is still using 3Qing and why. Ask them how many of their teachers in their school buildings have been trained in letters, LETRS, right? Not letters like the full spelled out word. that trains teachers how to effectively teach reading. Ask them. Ask when your child will be screened if you've noticed a problem. Ask for your child's reading success plan if you've noticed a problem. If they are behind, they should not be. If they are struggling, they should not be. We have too many tools and resources in 2026 to ensure that all of our children can be confident and competent readers. So that's what I got for you all. The data is real. The gap is real, but the blame is misplaced. Black parents are showing up. The system needs to match the efforts of parents. Let me say that again. The system needs to match the efforts of parents. Missouri law is shifting, but it's shifting, in my opinion, too slowly. And we do not have a comprehensive plan in place. So you may have a piece of legislation in the House, a piece of legislation in the Senate, but we do not have a comprehensive plan in place in our state, and that is a problem. Any state that has shifted the trajectory of literacy scores, it has been a comprehensive plan. And so I challenge our policymakers, our lawmakers, to stop rushing to put your name on pieces of legislation, and let's sit down at the table and design a comprehensive plan that builds confident and competent readers across our state. Let's make that investment. And for those that say we just need to give more money, Mississippi was able to go from 49th in the country to 9th in the country, and they spend about $30 per child as it relates to literacy. We don't need more money. Absolutely not. We need a commitment. Community organizations are on the ground, boots on the ground, doing the work each and every day. Support them. This conversation does need to keep going, grounded in facts and not assumptions. I've given you the facts. We've talked about it, y'all. All right, so let's keep going. This isn't a debate. Please understand that and know that it is not a debate. It's about our children. And if we're going to talk about it, let's make sure we're talking about it correctly. Let's make sure we're talking about it right. I thank you all for tuning in. I thank you for liking, sharing, commenting, engaging tonight. Share this live. Tag someone who needs to hear it, and let's keep going. Let's do the work. So that's what I have. I look forward to continuing to serve children, families, schools, school districts, even our state, as we are challenged to put together a comprehensive plan to shrink, to eliminate, to eradicate illiteracy in our community. That's what I have. Again, my name is Catina Taylor, founder and CEO of Dreams KC. Thank you again for tuning in. Thank you all to KCTV5 for releasing this story, getting the conversation going. Thank you all for allowing us to talk about it. That's what I got. Y'all have a great night. Let's get lit, y'all. Bye.
You can hear me say yeah. If you still healing, say yeah. If you can hear me say yeah. If you still healing, say yeah. If you know knowledge is power, turn it up. I'm a whole story, don't skim my page. Black woman magic season with age. From chalked up streams to a mic in the stage. I learned early, freedom's learned, I say. They try to count me out, I learned to count on every letter I master, put the lights on. From broken systems, I built my own lane. Turn wounds into wisdom, pressure to gain. I don't just hope, I feel when I walk. I've been evolving, molting my skin. If you knew where I started, you clap for the win. I read between lines, they never designed for girls who look like me to shine. But once you learn the code, can't cage your mind. Say it with me, literacy liberates life. Read it aloud, I'm free right now. Hands in the air, feel the truth come down. Read it aloud, I broke the vow. I said I had to saying honor the signs. I'm somebody's mom, I'm somebody's guide, somebody who refused to shrink her size. I teach parents power, kids how to dream, turn households into literacy scenes. This ain't a moment, it's a movement. I don't gatekeep, I improve it. If they ask who sent me, tell them I knew it. God, grit, growth, yeah, I'll influence. They told me wait my turn, stay in my place. I built a whole table and widened the space. Once you know your worth, can't unsee the truth. Say it with me, reading is revolutionary. Read it aloud, I'm free right now. Read it aloud, ain't in the air, feel the truth come down. Read it aloud, I broke the vow. They said I had to stay small somehow. Every word I learned, every scar I healed, built me into something real. This my sound, this my crown. When I step out, read it aloud. I've been becoming, don't rush my bloom. Had to unlearn just to make more room. Faith in my chest, fire in my feet. If I survive that, I can lead this. From hushed tones to headline nights, from can't sheet to watch her ignite. If you still growing, still breaking through, this part right here is for you. Say read, say read. Say think for yourself every day, every day. Read it out. I'm here right now. My whole life loud, no dimming down. Read it aloud. I know my power now. I teach freedom, no backing out. Every word I learned, every scar I heal, built me into something real. This my sound, this my crown. When I step out, read it aloud. Literacy is liberation. Healing is loud. Evolution looks good on me. Yeah.